Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Shelach, beginning in the book of Numbers, chapter 13. The portion of Shelach is like a mirror, a cracked mirror, casting an image that breaks the heart, reflecting a devastating tragedy that echoes in every generation. It tells the story of the sin of the spies, leaders of their generation that were offered the greatest gift heaven could bestow, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, the land that God had promised their forefathers. And our Parsha tells the story of how they rejected the land, fearing instead of trusting, slandering instead of giving thanks. In God's eyes, this was an incomparably terrible sin, a sin of rejection, worse than the golden calf, a disaster that created concentric circles of retribution and trauma, rippling and ricocheting through time, heralding suffering to our very day. The men returned from their mission and terrified the people by delivering an evil, slanderous report. As Torah here states, they brought forth to the children of Israel an evil report on the land that they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have passed to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. All the people we saw in it were huge. There we saw the Nephilim, the sons of the giants from among the Nephilim. We were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes." Their slanderous report was more than just military pessimism. It was lashon hara, baseless talebearing against the very land which Hashem had chosen and promised. And thus, essentially, it was lashon hara, evil speech, against God himself. As chapter 14 begins, we learn that the entire assembly raised up and issued its voice. The people wept that night. The spies' evil report caused the people to lose faith and express contempt and a lack of appreciation for the land, and this resulted in God's decree that this generation will not enter the land, that they will wander for 40 years, and their children will be the ones to enter. But this was not all. Our sages teach that this night was none other than Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av, the day upon which in the future both the first and second holy temples would be destroyed, and upon which many other terrible tragedies would befall the Jewish people in the future. In the words of Midrash Echa Rabbah, that night was the night of Tisha B'Av. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to them, "You cried for nothing. I will establish it for you as a crying for generations." This Midrash is foundational. It informs us that the sin of the spies, the rejection of the land of Israel, created an ongoing spiritual wound that remains open and unhealed. The phrase, "a crying for generations," indicates that every generation somehow perpetuates the sin. We are caught in a recurring cycle of tragedy that is continuously reactivated until it will finally be rectified. So start to open up your heart. This was not a one-time blunder, an isolated historical failure, but the beginning of a spiritual pattern that would require conscious repair in every generation. It was an earthquake shift in the spiritual tectonic plate of the world. And this is the true meaning of our sages' teaching, that the sin of the spies must constantly be rectified, because whether subtly or overtly, it's constantly being repeated in every generation. And thus, every generation that fails to correct this attitude towards God's land is perpetuating the exile and prolonging the need for tikkun. God's land, I emphasize, because the land of Israel is God's personal possession. In reference to the sabbatical year in Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 23, Hashem states, "For the land is mine, you are strangers and sojourners with me." And this profound statement stresses that the land is not owned, it is entrusted by God for his purposes in the world. But what caused these great men to go to pieces and lose it? Our sages teach that they were righteous men. At least they started out as being righteous. That's why they were selected. Yet they suffered an existential crisis of vision and crumbled, other than Yehoshua and Kalev, who remained righteous. It's very perplexing. After experiencing the direct hand of God that miraculously took them from Egyptian slavery through the sea to Sinai, where they experienced the presence of God, through the desert, being fed the manna, and in God's protective custody, what caused this massive breakdown and loss of faith? One idea that we learn is that they suffered a crisis because they had a misguided, skewed understanding of holiness. They could not imagine the physical realm becoming a dwelling for holiness. In the desert, they experienced a transcendental relationship with God. They lived on an exalted level of reality, eating the manna, drinking water from Miriam's miraculous well, and they feared that they would lose this level of intimacy with God amid the grind of labor and daily life. But this was the great test that they failed. They preferred the ethereal experience of the desert, a purely spiritual life detached from physical toil, but Hashem wants the fusion. His intention was for Israel to sanctify the physical realm through the land, and it is precisely in Eretz Israel where the spiritual and physical are meant to meet. And thus, Rav Tzadok HaKohen writes that the sin of the spies was a failure to believe that Hashem can be present within the physical world, and specifically within the land. He says that this doubt recurs in every generation whenever the people of Israel fail to embrace their mission. The ultimate tikkun, rectification, can only be accomplished in the land of Israel. And thus, he writes, every generation is called upon to repair this flaw. But open up your heart now in the deepest way and understand that none of this is ancient history. The cracked mirror of this Torah portion also shows us an image of ourselves that we might not like to see. Do we really even understand just what the land of Israel is in this world? And Deuteronomy 11:12 describes it as uniquely watched over by Hashem, a land that Hashem your God seeks. The eyes of Hashem are upon it from the beginning of the year to year's end. This means that intimate divine care and providence are unique to this land. Unlike other lands, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, exists in a different metaphysical framework. It's the only land governed by direct divine supervision. And deeper still, in chapter 38, verse 12, Ezekiel calls this land the Tabor, the navel of the earth. Midrash Tanchum explains the meaning of the prophet's expression that just as the navel connects a fetus to its source of nourishment, so too, the land of Israel is the spiritual conduit through which sustenance, both physical and spiritual, flows to the entire world. It is in this light that the sages in Tractate Ta'anit teach that rain first falls in the land of Israel directly from God, and then the rest of the world receives the spillover. For the land into which you are coming is not like the land of Egypt, but it is a land of hills and valleys. From the rain of the heavens it drinks water, we learn in Deuteronomy chapter 11. Unlike Egypt with its self-contained irrigation, the land of Israel relies only on heaven. It's a training ground for emunah, for faith and reliance on God alone. This secret of rainfall is more than a meteorological forecast. The rain in Israel is personally from Hashem's hand because it represents the spiritual flow of Shefa, blessed divine abundance that begins in the land and then radiates outward to the rest of the world. Midrash Sifri on Deuteronomy 37 poetically states, just as the soul fills the body, so the land of Israel fills the world, meaning the land is not just central, it is animating. Just as the soul gives vitality to the body, so too the land of Israel gives spiritual vitality to the entire world. The Holy Zohar is even more emphatic, teaching that Eretz Israel is the heart of the world. The metaphor is exquisite. Just as the heart pumps lifeblood to every organ, so too the land of Israel pumps spiritual life into the nations, and without that heart, the world is spiritually anemic. The same source reveals that the Shekhinah never departs from the land of Israel. Even in exile, the divine presence remains tethered to this land. And thus the land of Israel is not just a location, but a vessel for containing and revealing Hashem's light. Another beautifully powerful teaching of our sages explains how the land of Israel is the spiritual heart of the world. At the summit of Jerusalem's Temple Mount, in the place of the temple's Holy of Holies, currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock, lies the Even HaShetiyah, the foundation stone upon which the Ark of the Covenant would reside. According to our sages, it is from this very stone that the world was created. It's literally the foundation of the world. But beyond being the physical axis of creation, this relates to a spiritual secret. The sages teach that all the prayers of the world gather at this very spot before ascending to heaven. Just as all blood must pass through the heart, so too all prayer must pass this way. This idea of the cosmic relay of prayer is not limited to Jewish prayer alone. The temple was always intended to be a universal house of prayer, as the prophet Isaiah declares, "For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations." The Temple Mount is the point of divine interface with creation. All prayers, no matter where they originate, pass through this nexus point. It's the spiritual hub of the universe, not simply the Jewish homeland, but Hashem's chosen gateway to act as the portal and interface of the divine and this world. And it has a name. It's called Zion. Zionism is generally defined as a movement founded in 1897 for what was originally the reestablishment and is now the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. But open up your heart much deeper still. Zionism is a lot older than that. It was actually founded by the Creator, and the record of its incorporation is found in the pages of the Bible. The word's root is Tzion, Zion, appearing in the Tanakh 152 times, most frequently in Psalms, Isaiah, Zechariah, and Lamentations. It connotes a mark, a distinction, or a highlight, and in that sense, Zion is the mark of excellence upon the world, the point where heaven and earth meet. Throughout the Hebrew Bible, it is used as a poetic name for the land of Israel in general and for Jerusalem in particular, conveying beauty, perfection, excellence, spiritual centrality, and divine choice and divine delight as expressed by God himself. There are literally too many examples to choose from, but we get the idea from looking at just a few verses. Psalms 50, verse 2 states, "From Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shone forth," stressing that Zion is not only beautiful, it's the source of divine radiance in this world. In Isaiah chapter 62, verses 1 through 3, the speaker is God. "For Zion's sake," God says, "I will not be silent. Nations shall see your righteousness, and you shall be a crown of beauty in the hand of Hashem." And with these words, God promises to restore Zion's honor in the eyes of the nation. In chapter 60, verse 14, Isaiah declares, "The sons of those who afflicted you shall come bowing, and they shall call you the city of Hashem, Zion of the Holy One of Israel." This is a prophecy of the future, assuring us that those who had been your enemies will one day acknowledge Zion as the earthly embodiment of holiness. But most moving of all are the verses in which God himself chooses Zion and expresses his love for her. In Psalms 87, King David declares, "Hashem loves the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of you, O city of God, Selah." In Psalms 132, we learn explicitly that Zion is Hashem's eternal choice and desire. "For Hashem has chosen Zion. He has desired it for his habitation. This is my resting place forever. Here I will dwell, for I have desired it." And God's passionate love for Zion is expressed through his words of the prophet Zechariah in chapter 8 as, "Thus says Hashem of hosts, I am zealous for Zion with great zeal. I will return to Zion and dwell in Jerusalem." And in chapter 2, Zechariah again expresses God's direct divine promise to return and dwell in Zion. "Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming, and I will dwell in your midst, declares Hashem." These verses and others testify to the concept that Zion is not merely a place, but a divine idea, the embodiment of beauty, excellence, moral light, and God's resting place on earth. Argue if you like, but God is clearly a Zionist. Sue me, or just deal with it. When Israel lives in harmony with Hashem's will in Zion, the land itself becomes the manifestation of God's dream for humanity, and that is the true meaning of the word Zion, a state of excellence for all mankind. Thus, it's clear that Zion is not simply the center of Jewish longing throughout the millennia, but the center of the world's spiritual healing. Zionism is not a nationalistic ideology. It's Israel's purpose to function as Hashem's chosen vessel for bringing blessing to the world. But we are now in a time of urgency, an hour of destiny, when not only are evil voices of slander and degradation against the land louder than ever, but forces of evil aligned against the land are reaching epic, shall we say, nuclear proportions. But as terrible as the sins against the land are, so is the greatness of the moment. This is our moment of tikkun, of ultimate fixing. The land calls out for a global tikkun, a healing of the ancient rupture caused by the sin of the spies, through the affirmation of the land's sanctity and cosmic purpose as God's choice. Acknowledging its holiness is taking a step in the direction back to the Garden of Eden. The plight of the land presents a moral test for humanity, a choice. Whose side are you on? We have seen that the spies' slander against the land caused the destruction of the Holy Temple and is the root of all of the nation of Israel's subsequent exiles and grief. But the trouble is not Israel's alone, and this message is not for Jews alone. Today, our generation is being given an unprecedented opportunity to make the right choice for the honor of God. a chance to heal the cycle that began with the spies once and for all. From the very beginning, God chose this land as the source of divine blessing for all the nations of the world. Torah teaches that in the future, all mankind will flow to it as to the light of a powerful beacon, as the source of global spiritual guidance, as Isaiah prophesies. For Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of Hashem from Jerusalem. This is not poetic hyperbole. It's a prophecy of global spiritual realignment. The Torah will emanate from Jerusalem, recentering human civilization on Hashem's truth. So open up your heart as deep as you can, deeper than ever before in your life. The land of Israel is not just a place on a map. Neither is it simply a land with a past, a biblical artifact. No map could reveal or define what it really is. The spiritual engine for all humanity, the nexus where heaven touches earth, where the Creator's honor is revealed, where man's exile from Eden is to finally be reversed. The world needs to internalize the blessing that the land of Israel, the palace of the king, brings to all the nations. It's the embassy of Hashem in this world. Every expression and act against the land strengthens the sin of the spies. Every degradation of Israel further diminishes Hashem's honor in this world and desecrates his name. And every act of support is a step advancing the cosmic tikkun, healing the wound and welcoming God back into the world. Never before has our task to repair the sin of the spies been more urgent. We can do this by honoring and uplifting the land and drawing near to it in word, deed, and consciousness. Not only in defending the land, whether against slander or against physical danger, but in recognizing its role as Hashem's dwelling in this world and as the conduit of divine light and blessing and of moral consciousness for all humanity. God protects his people and his land. It's all miracles at every moment. What you're seeing is nothing but God alone. God tells us in Isaiah chapter 54, any weapon sharpened against you will not succeed, and any tongue that will rise against you in judgment you will condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Hashem and the righteousness from me, the word of Hashem.